This week on Dale Carter's America, we start with a big I told you so as we talk about policies and outcomes. We'll talk about Black History Month and highlight some Black Americans who aren't down with the movement to prove that you can be Black and conservative in America. It's okay. We'll also revisit life in Joey B's America. That plus how you can do things differently and succeed. All of that on this episode of Dale Carter's America.
From the heart of flyover country, he's not on the far right, and he's certainly not on the far left. Like you, he's somewhere in the middle. This is Dale Carter's America.
Well, hello there. Dale Carter along with Kurt Wheeler, and we have a lot on the plate today, so I want to get to it. First of all, some musings before we even get started. There was a delay in getting the podcast started today, so I went to a restaurant here in Westport to have breakfast, Kurt. Mm-hmm. And my server had one of those ring things dangling from her nose.
Oh, no.
Which I find absolutely disgusting. And so I posted something. I'm like, is it me? And our friend Bill Fickle, who runs a restaurant, said, hey, just be glad they showed up for work. I mean, that is a low bar these days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad, man. It's sad. But, yeah, there is something true about that. You know, like you see somebody with facial piercings or like a face tattoo or something, and it makes you feel a certain way. You know, you can't avoid it.
And I'm not going to judge anybody. I just don't want to think about anything dripping off of that into my food. It's just, so there you go. You get the visual that I've got.
Oh, great.
I'm wearing my Chiefs Super Bowl pullover that I got, and I really enjoy that. We did win the Super Bowl, and you may have heard we had a parade through Kansas City, and there were how many arrests, Kurt? Do you know?
I don't.
2.
Oh, that's not bad.
2.
That's not bad.
Yet, the newspaper here in town would make you think that our Chiefs were just like renegade rebels and rogues because they were drinking openly in front of the children. And there were letters to the editor. And everybody's picked up on this story. Fox has picked up on it. ESPN has picked up on it. And I'm going through my Facebook feed, and I keep seeing this crap from the newspaper here in Kansas City. And I'm like, why do I get this? Because I don't subscribe to the paper. I don't agree with them on anything. And then I realized that at a weak moment, I followed the paper.
Oh, yeah.
And so in one click, I unfollowed it. And so my life is going to be a whole lot happier now. John Kerry, you may have heard this, sold his plane. Did you hear that? He sold the private jet.
No.
But that, to me, is not good enough. He sold it, which means somebody else is going to be flying it around and polluting our environment.
Right.
If he truly believed in the cause of global warming and climate change, he would have melted it down.
Yeah.
Couldn't he have melted it down for parts, maybe for an electric car?
Yeah.
See?
Well, melting it down is going to create more carbon emissions, though, too. So you have to take that into account.
What would you do? Like just unscrew it? I mean, unratchet it or whatever they do?
Maybe
My son would know. He works on planes.
Maybe just use solar-powered excavators. And then just dig a big hole in the ground and then just bury it.
Ford has stopped production of the F-150 EV because they have a battery issue.
Oh, no. That was quick.
Yep, that was quick. So, never mind where the things are coming from. We don't want to know that because that's an inconvenient truth, as Al Gore would say. Listen, we want to thank our sponsors on the podcast. They've been with us through a lot, and we love them all. Bob Watson, my State Farm agent in Blue Springs. He's available to help you at 816-229-7878, 7th and Main in Blue Springs. Auto, home, life, commercial insurance. And I got my update for the month, Kurt, and my rates went down.
Nice.
Yeah, way to go, Bob. And it's not just me. I know he likes me and everything, and we've been together for almost 30 years, which is longer than most marriages last. Sorry, Kurt. Bob will help you and your entire family. If you need a rate quote, call my friend Bob at 816-229-7878, licensed in both Kansas and Missouri. You need a new roof? Boy, that is a piece of infrastructure you definitely need to make sure you've got right on your house. My friend Austin Watterson will come out and give you the estimate on that. They're Cass County folks, not fly-by-night. They're also into solar as well. They could show you how you could turn your building into an energy producer. Own your utilities rather than rent them. Royal Roofing and Solar, 816-540-7057. Ask Austin when you talk to him about tax credits and grants for small rural business and ag producers. If you're falling into either one of those categories or you know someone who does, take advantage of what Joey B. and the government is going to offer. If they're going to offer it, you might as well take advantage. Royal Roofing and Solar, 816-540-7057. And our most recent sponsor of the podcast, he's the guy that's going to save your life. This will save your life. You know, we have a lot of fun on the podcast, but this is dead serious. You need to get a colonoscopy. You got to get the colon cancer screening. It is something that if we catch it early, we can save your life. And the folks at Midwest GI Health and Wellness, they're doctors who will make sure that they find it and they cure it. They've got outpatient hemorrhoid treatment as well. Anything you could think of that's down there, they're going to work on it. Dr. Mark Taormina is our doctor here. He also works with other doctors there at Midwest GI Health and Wellness, and you can find them online at midwestgihealth.com. You can reach them at 816-836-2200. And, we always ask you to join us on YouTube and Rumble where you can see the pictures that go with the podcast. There's a picture of Dr. Mark Taormina, good-looking guy there. He's got other folks who work with him as well. And they get a rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars. Their Google rating.
It's pretty damn good.
The highest in Kansas City. You know, they'll take you down for a nice nap. What's that, propofol? Is that what they give you?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I've had one, and I had a nice nap. I woke up, and everything was fine, and everything was ducky.
No pain back there?
No pain at all. Whatever they do, it's painless. So, but get it done. It's that important. Get it done. All right. So the news of the day, Kurt, we got the news that Jimmy Carter, the 39th president of the United States, has entered hospice. He's 98 years old. He survived brain cancer. And I want to put it into historical context here a little bit because all this is before you were even born, Kurt. There was a lot of stuff that happened. And really, two presidents who don't get their due in historical significance are Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter. Think about the time that the two of them came into, right? We were coming out of Vietnam. And I go back even further. We've talked about this on the podcast. Would Vietnam have even happened if JFK hadn't been assassinated? Would we have gotten all of the social spending that President Lyndon Johnson jammed through Congress that we're still dealing with the after effects of today? When you look at our $31 trillion debt, how much of that traces back to programs that LBJ put into place that never went away? And then there was Vietnam. We went into a war. Okay, think about Ukraine right now. We went into a war in Vietnam because we were going to save democracy. And coming out of the shadow of World War II, LBJ's first concern was, well, I'm not going to be the first president that loses a war. I'm just going to keep on spending. We're just going to keep on putting bodies into the crusher, and we're going to do whatever we have to do. So Richard Nixon wins in 1968 because he has a secret plan to get us out of Vietnam. There was no secret plan to get us out of Vietnam. Nixon doubled down. He was a World War II vet, and he basically said the same thing LBJ said. I'm not going to be the first president in America that loses a war. And so it just kept going and going and going until Nixon had to resign in disgrace, and it was Gerald Ford, a guy who was not elected to either office. He was appointed when Spiro Agnew had to resign in disgrace. And then when Nixon resigned in disgrace, he was elevated to president. He was a congressman from Michigan, longtime congressman. He got us out of Vietnam. And then, of course, he pardoned Richard Nixon, and that just the whole sleaze factor involved in that. So Jimmy Carter wins a narrow victory. And Jimmy Carter came in and probably the most decent human being to ever be in the Oval Office. I think
I've heard that about him too. Yeah.
Most people would agree, right?
I've heard that about him. Yeah. I mean, we tend to talk about his policies a lot because his policies were very unpopular. He was a one-term president. He got, elected out of office like immediately when Reagan came in, right? And so that's what people talk about more often because, as president, your policies are a reflection of your presidency. But he was is still a very decent guy and very likable.
I talk about on this podcast that we want to be judged on policies. When we get to talking about Nikki Haley later and you hear all the crap that's swirling around Nikki Haley from the left, they're nothing to do with her policies. It's all the extraneous stuff. With Jimmy Carter, his policies were a disaster. And he probably, from a policy standpoint, from a conservative perspective, goes down as one of the worst presidents in U.S. history. And then Joe Biden comes along and says, hey, Jimmy, hold my beer because I can make it even a lot worse. But Jimmy Carter's contribution to life is that when he left the Oval Office, I mean, there was no hint of scandal anywhere on Jimmy Carter.
Right.
And he basically set the blueprint for how you should act and how you should conduct yourself as a post-president. He did a lot for a lot of people. And, you know, the story I saw this morning is he still lives in a 2-bedroom house in Plains, Georgia that's worth less than $200,000. Think about that in the backdrop of every other person who's been in the Oval Office.
Yeah, including Joe Biden, who has, 4 or 5 houses all over the place. So.
Yeah. So I think that puts it into a little bit of historical perspective. America wanted competence coming out of Jimmy Carter. They liked him. He was a nice guy. But it's like, inflation was high. Gas was hard to find. If you could find it at all, it was going to be expensive for the time. Interest rates were terrible. We had something called the misery index. And Ronald Reagan came along, to your point, and he said, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And if I'm a Republican, whether it's DeSantis or Trump or Nikki Haley or anybody else who runs and gets the nomination, that's all you need, Kurt.
Yep.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Yep.
Is America better off than it was 4 years ago? And that's how Ronald Reagan won. He was the first president I voted for. But Jimmy Carter, no relation that I'm aware of, in hospice now, 98 years old. We send our prayers from Dale Carter's America to him and to his family. Back to the news of the day. Joey B., our current president, who said to Jimmy Carter, hold my beer. He visited Ukraine to reinforce U.S. support on the 1-year anniversary of the war. So there you go. We got a little video of him marching. I guess they're going to lay a wreath somewhere, and he's with Zelensky, and he's like, hey, Zelensky, slow down, man. I'm an old man. I can't walk that fast.
Just look at how he walks. Like you can tell, just like the way he walks is very like disjointed. Like he's propped up on drugs or something like that. That would be my guess. It's pure speculation, of course, but. And the other notable thing that people are pointing out, with everything going on here, we had the big train derailment in Ohio, of course, and toxic chemicals spilled into the air, into the water. He's done basically nothing about that. No money, no support, no visit. And he's visiting Ukraine on President's Day before he visits, an American town that is experiencing genuine disaster.
By the way, apparently we gave a heads up to the Russians that he was going to be visiting Ukraine, and it's like, no monkey business. Don't you bomb where he's going to be, because he's visiting. Russia's response to this, have you seen this?
No.
They have pulled out of the New START nuclear treaty with the U.S.
Oh.
I mean, that's a big deal.
Bad, right?
That is very bad. And now China's getting involved with Russia, and we've got this thing over in Ukraine where we're just giving them a blank check, and Biden even underlined that. He's like, we're going to give you everything you need, just money, weapons. I mean, is that a slippery slope to men?
I think possibly. I mean, this administration and the kind of global liberal elite are fully committed to globalism. That is their entire mission across the planet, is to commit to the liberal new world order, one world government, all of this stuff. And that's why we're supporting Ukraine. And it's at the detriment of actual national relations. We should be talking with Russia. We should be talking with China. Trump did that, and he got in a lot of trouble for it. But he was communicating and negotiating from a place of strength, which we're not doing now.
I would just think that the way out of this, and I would give him the Nobel Peace Prize if he somehow pulled this off. He won't do it. But work a back channel with Vladimir Putin. It's like, okay, Putin, what do you want? What can we do here? I mean, there's got to be a way.
Or a front channel. It doesn't even have to be a back channel. Like, make it public, get these people at a table together and make it happen,
Yeah. That would be leadership.
Yeah.
And that's something, again, we have a leadership vacuum in this country right now, and we're going to have it for at least the next couple of years. We're also sending $100 million to Turkey and Syria after the earthquake. $100 million. And I was joking about this on the air because I knew when they had the earthquake that, death to America. Where's the phone number? We got to call them because we need all this money. I don't even know where we're getting it. I guess we're still printing it. Maybe we're getting toner cartridges somewhere. But we're sending $100 million to Turkey and Syria. Now, you alluded to this. Let's just jump into it. East Palestine, Ohio, not Palestine, East Palestine, Ohio, doesn't qualify for federal aid, according to our federal government. The EPA director visited. My question is, did he drink the water?
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been something to see for those folks, right? Here, let's pour you some tap water. Take a big swig.
Well, they're being told that the water is safe to drink.
So drink it.
Yeah.
Get somebody from the Fed. Mayor Pete, he hasn't even been there yet.
No.
And then he makes condescending remarks about those folks in Ohio. Check this out.
Look, rail safety is something that has evolved a lot over the years, but there's clearly more that needs to be done because while this horrible situation has gotten a particularly high amount of attention, there are roughly 1,000 cases a year of a train derailing.
Yeah.
Right. And isn't that bad?
we're okay. There's that, but were there pictures that look like a mushroom cloud over a town in Ohio that happens to be, right on the Ohio River, which, goes by millions and millions of people on its way to the Mississippi, which goes by millions more people on its way down south? I mean, at some point, isn't that what the federal government's supposed to do? We talk about what should the role of the government be, and it's like the Democrats don't want to do anything they're supposed to do. They want to do everything that we don't want them to do. It's like millions of dollars to Ukraine. Aren't we at billions, by the way? I think we are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're at 30 billion?
No, like
that?
100 billion plus, yeah.
All right, and then another 100 million, which is pocket change, over to Turkey and Syria. Yeah. But no federal relief, no federal aid for a town that's been decimated in our own country?
Yeah, well, the question naturally becomes why, right? I mean, it's obvious that certain things are being prioritized over other things. The president's going to Ukraine, we're sending money to Syria and Turkey, but we're not having any federal aid for American citizens that have experienced this disaster that was entirely created by not them. It's not their fault. It was the rail company and the local and state government that decided to leak these chemicals and burn them off. So the question is why? Why is one thing being prioritized over the other? And there's many possible answers to that. But one thing that has been talked about previously, and I don't have a clip, but you can look this up on your own. Maybe we'll post it to the Facebook page, is race-based relief. And Kamala Harris has said this directly, I believe, and maybe Pete Buttigieg and others, that they're going to prioritize relief, disaster relief for communities of color, black and brown, quote unquote, communities through FEMA and other federal organizations. So that naturally means if you're going to prioritize certain communities, then you're going to not prioritize other communities. This is a largely white town. And it voted like 75% for Donald Trump in 2020.
As did Ohio.
Yep. So, I mean, again, it's speculation, but when you give us no answers, when you completely ignore the problem, provide no answers and no solution, of course people are going to speculate. And these are things that have been talked about openly in the past. So, maybe that has something to do with it.
So what you're saying is if this happened in East St. Louis, Illinois, it probably would be a much different response from the federal government than East Palestine, Ohio.
Yeah. Yep.
That's sad. That's truly sad. Well, this is going to continue, and we're going to continue to talk about it, and hopefully somebody's going to hold their feet to the fire. And these are things you need to realize as we go through these next 2 years of the Joe Biden presidency. Then you've got, and I will grant you, Kurt, that there are idiots on the far left. I think there are idiots on the far right, and it's two sides of the same coin. Keith Olbermann, let's start with the blue guy, because he suggests that the blue states starve the red states into submission. Check this out.
We are owned by guns, and therefore there is only one way to stop the mass shootings. It is to suffocate the businesses that make billions of dollars in profits off guns, to destroy the gun lobby, the death lobby, and the Republican Party that defends those lobbies and those businesses. And the only way to do that is an economic civil war. The blue states have all the money. They must starve the red states into submission.
Now,
or another 600.
Wait a minute. Do the blue states have all the money?
I don't really know the data on that. I mean, there is something to be said, that like the population centers are blue, so even within red states, we've talked about this before. People will say, oh, red states have a higher crime rate than blue states. Well, the reason for that is because you have a red state like Missouri, but within the red state of Missouri, you have the blue districts of St. Louis and Kansas City where all the crime happens.
Right.
So certainly California, Los Angeles,
who's
San
the guy
Francisco.
Berkshire Hathaway, the rich guy? The richest guy, Berkshire Hathaway. I'm drawing a blank on this, but huge rich guy. Lives in Omaha, Nebraska. And he's one of the richest people in the country. The people who own Walmart live in Arkansas. I mean, okay, that's one point. Put that aside for a second. That's one point. The other point is, isn't most of the food grown in the red states?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's a great point too. Money isn't everything. You want to starve us of money? We'll starve you of food. Yeah.
I mean, how asinine is this? And the gun violence that's happening, and we're going to get into enforcement here in a minute, is happening in the blue cities.
Right.
There's another inconvenient fact for you, Mr. Olbermann.
Right.
So, okay, he's one idiot on one side, and I know you're a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but, she's on the right, and she's saying, okay, what we need now is a divorce between the red states and the blue states. I think both are idiotic solutions.
Yeah, I'll read her tweet here. She says, we need a national divorce. We need to separate by red states and blue states and shrink the federal government. Everyone I talk to says this. From the sick and disgusting woke culture issues shoved down our throats to the Democrats' traitors, America Last policies, we are done.
Yeah. Well, I don't think either is a solution. I think there's something in the middle here. We've got to figure out the best way forward for this government, and there's a grown-up conversation to be had here. Senator Rick Scott is one of the grown-ups in the room, and they're demonizing him on both sides. The president talks about him in every speech. He doesn't talk about Rick Scott. He says, a bunch of you people over there, I'm not going to name names, but a bunch of you people.
Right.
There's only one, and maybe now two with former Vice President Pence, who have the balls to stand up and say, what we're doing is not working. And the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. And that's where we are. So Senator Scott now defending himself against attacks on his idea to sunset all federal laws after 5 years and redebate them. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. That's a conversation that we're going to have. And Vice President Pence, and he went on Fox News, and I thought John Roberts was going to have a stroke when he said this. He's like, oh, you sure you want to be saying this? So here's what he said.
That we have to have a conversation about reforming entitlements in the days ahead. I think we can replace the New Deal programs with a better deal. I think in Social Security, you can keep all the promises that you made to seniors. You can, people that will retire within the next 20 years, no changes. But to give options to younger Americans to invest a portion of their Social Security in a private savings account and get a better deal, I think is an idea whose time will come.
Do you think there's an appetite for that?
Look at Roberts.
It's all about leadership. I really believe that. I submit to you.
Yeah.
He's like, the clip doesn't go this far, but he's like, are you sure you want to be saying this?
Yeah.
I mean, you're touching the third rail.
It's just, it's ridiculous, man. I mean, obviously something has to be done about it. And we've talked about it before. Anyone with half a brain knows, if you look into it, knows that, this is insoluble. This amount of spending that we have on entitlements. So,
but what the Democrats do is when anytime you talk about this, it's like, oh, they want to take away your Social Security. They want to kill old people. They want to starve you. And they just use such hyperbolic language to say all this stuff that you can't have an adult conversation.
Right. And I mean, it's the same thing they do with everything else, like with race or, the gay agenda, if you want to call it that, or anything else. They just immediately start throwing bombs at you and calling you names, and you just have to ignore it. You have to push through and have the conversation, because people who are intelligent enough to actually see what's going on will appreciate that, because nobody has the courage to actually have the conversation. And even there, like Pence is saying, we need to reform and stuff like that, but he's not really saying anything that controversial. He's still boxing it in this very like polished political speak. He's saying we're going to replace the New Deal with a better deal, or whatever he said, and we're not taking away entitlements. We need to, have a conversation and blah, blah, blah. He's not saying anything crazy. Yeah. So they're going to say that about whatever you say. You bring up one little thing and, you want to, old people to die or whatever.
I'm not in office, so I guess I can say whatever I want to say. It's my podcast, right? And I said this last time. There are some common sense things that we could do to help Social Security along. We could remove the FICA limit. Right now, if you make I think it's $156,000 a year, you hit a limit and you don't have that taken out of your check anymore. Mm-hmm. Why are we doing that? Yep. Let's do away with that altogether. Raise the retirement age. the retirement age right now, I think full retirement is 67. Does that sound right?
Maybe. Yeah,
Okay,
I don't know.
70. Move it up to 70. People are living longer. There are common sense things that need to be done. You know, if you make Patrick Mahomes money, do you need Social Security? So that's means testing. So these are conversations that should be had at a grown-up level and what leaders would do.
Yeah. And he also mentions another thing in there too, which people have talked about with Social Security and healthcare and other things and education, which is like creating a private savings account that people can
Right.
use. And I think it's not privatizing fully because it's still obviously a government program, but privatizing it to that level where you have people directly in control over their own funds. But then you run into the problem of obviously people are going to mishandle that. They're going to spend it on stupid shit. So if you're going to do that, then you have to also hold people accountable on the other side of that, which is a much more difficult conversation.
Well, and when you talk about that, it's like the other side of that from the Democrats is going to be, oh, you want to put your Social Security in the risky stock market? You want to just take it out to Vegas and gamble it away?
Well, it's going to do better if you can control where you invest it. It's going to grow. It's going to do better than it is just sitting there. I mean, your money is losing money. Your money is losing wealth just sitting, in an account or sitting, wherever. It's not doing you any good. I wanted to really quick go back to the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing because we kind of glossed over that. But I do like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I do agree with a lot of what she says. She had said some stuff, obviously, that I disagree with, but and she's spot on there with her analysis, but it's just such a defeatist mindset. And it's from both sides, the left and the right saying, oh, it's a new civil war, it's a national divorce. It just, to me, that just means you're giving up, right? I mean, if you're saying it's time for a national divorce, separate the red states and the blue states, you're just giving up on America. You're giving up that there's any hope of unification, and I don't believe in that, and I don't think you do either.
I don't. Warren Buffett, by the way, is the guy I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
Who lives in Omaha, who is
I
one
didn't
of the
know that.
richest people in the world. So there you go.
Interesting.
We get to keep him, by the way, Olbermann. So we get him. We get the Walmart people down in Arkansas, and we
the
get all the
Walmart
food.
people.
So
And
screw you.
The Bass Pro guy, what's his name? Johnny?
Oh,
something?
yeah. Johnny, I can't think of his last name.
Yeah.
My wife would know because she's all over that. But, yeah, we got him because he's in Missouri.
Yep.
So, yeah. Okay, so to the balloon thing. Now, before we...
To the balloon thing.
The balloon thing
Greatest
is a thing.
segue ever.
Okay, so, all right. Joe Biden is excoriated by everyone, including us, because he lets a Chinese spy balloon just... meander all over the country. Of course, China says it's not really anything bad, and it's just off course, and it just happens to go over your, sensitive areas in the country, your missile silos, Whiteman Air Force Base, various other bases in the country. And Biden goes, well, I told them to shoot it down. They said they didn't want to do it, hurt anybody or a cow or anything. And so, like Montana, for instance, you couldn't shoot it. So they shot it down over water after it went all the way across the country. So I have a feeling, and knowing how people like Joe Biden are, people who are in the White House, it's like, well, they want to see something? I'll shoot every goddamn thing down. Right? And so that's what they've done. They've shot down a bunch of stuff. And apparently with these $400,000 missiles, they may well have shot down a balloon that was launched by the Northern Illinois Bottlecap Balloon Brigade. They put up these 32-inch balloons, and then they track them as they make their way across, and they've lost contact with one over the state of Alaska. It was a $12 balloon, and it may well have been shot down by a $400,000 U.S. missile, just to show that our guy in the White House, he's got some stones.
Yeah. This is just such a great picture, and we have it up if you're watching on YouTube. This is the Northern Illinois Bottlecap Balloon Brigade. First of all, the name, I mean, can we just acknowledge how funny that name is? That's probably the name of this episode.
Can I just point out something? They're all white.
I know.
No wonder we shot the damn thing down.
Look at this kid right here. I mean, he looks like a domestic terrorist if I've ever seen one.
He really does.
So that
he looks like my stepson.
He's probably hiding some kind of secret, weapons technology in that $12
well, no wonder
balloon.
they shot. I didn't even realize this, that the Northern Illinois Bottlecap Balloon Brigade, they're made up of all white people. No wonder we shot it down.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, to, I guess, be more serious, but it shows you something, right? The actual Chinese spy balloon, we didn't shoot down, and it went across the entire country, sending who knows what kind of data to China. Not that they don't have enough from TikTok to, cell phones, everything else.
Right.
But, and then the $12 hobby balloon And by the way, you know, they had excuses for that. It was, we're gonna shoot it down over population centers, and the debris is gonna fall down and, you know, hurt people or something like that.
I've been to Montana, by the way. There's plenty of places they could have shot the damn thing down.
Yeah, and so they didn't shoot it down, and so now we have, you know, a $12 balloon from the Bottlecap, the Northern Illinois Bottlecap Balloon Brigade. I keep having to look at it because it's such a long name, and they shoot that down immediately. So. Is he trying to prove something, or does he just have like a different set of standards for a Chinese spy balloon and the Northern
Was
Illinois?
that a rhetorical question? Because he's indeed trying to prove something. It's like, you know, you guys criticized me over this, so I'm going to take that one, and that one.
I mean, it is a rhetorical question, but it's also a real question because, again, like the Ohio thing, with no aid going to Ohio, they're not providing answers really for any of this stuff. So of course there's going to be speculation. You know, there's already questions about Joe Biden and his family being involved with China, right? With business dealings in China, with possibly political influence in China through the business dealings. So why did he not shoot the balloon down? Why did he let it go over the whole country? You know, maybe that has something to do with it. Again, you're forcing people to speculate and put on the tinfoil hat because we have all this evidence and you're not providing an alternative.
Well, I speculated last week that they shot it down over water to maybe fry the electronics and make it even more difficult to find. It would be easier to find, and the electronics might not have been fried if it had been, you know, taken down over Montana.
For us to recover.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For us to. Okay, but John Kirby, I mean, he's out there. At least they didn't send Karine out there for this. John Kirby's somebody who can put two sentences together.
My understanding, correct us if we're wrong, we're told these missiles used to take out these balloons are over $400,000 each. One of them, apparently we used two, and the balloon was only maybe worth $12. What do you tell the American people about our ability, our radar, our defenses to differentiate between real threats? Because we can't spend that kind of taxpayer money taking down hobby balloons.
Well, we don't know exactly what these balloons were, and then we've called off now the search in Lake Huron and the one over Alaska, so we may never know completely. But the leading intelligence community assessment is that they were probably for benign purposes, whether it's weather or commercial scientific research. But the president made the best decision he could in the moment with the information that he had and at the advice of his entire military leadership.
Once again, I want to get our military leadership under oath in front of Congress, because the last time this happened, they hung him out to dry. Remember Afghanistan? All of the generals told him this was the best way to do this. And they got in front of Congress, and it's like, no, we told him that he should have done this and he should have done that. I'd love to get those people under oath again to hang him out to dry once again.
And he just admitted that they had no idea what the
and they called
were.
off the search.
Yeah.
You know, why would you search?
Right.
So the next person who has entered the race for president is Governor Nikki Haley. Governor Haley was the governor of South Carolina. She announces for president. She's already touched a rail that set the left's hair on fire because she argues, and think about this argument she's making, because it's not just Biden. She's also sending a little dart toward Donald Trump, right? Yep. That politicians over 75 should be subject to cognitive testing. I think, wasn't Trump cognitively tested when he was president? Didn't he submit to that?
Maybe.
I think he did.
Yeah, maybe. And it was the best test ever. Nobody has better cognitive ability than me. That's what everyone says. All the best doctors. I have the best doctors.
All right, Nikki Haley.
Okay, sorry. I had to get that in.
We have no time to waste. And Americans are done. They're tired. They're done. They want term limits. They want mandatory testing for people over the age of 75 for competency. They want to know that we're going to start getting D.C. in shape. I never was in Washington. I want to go in and do exactly what I did at the UN, which is start to let them know what the American people expect of them, not the other way around.
By the way, and I said this on the air this morning, and I think I truly believe this in my heart. I think it's time for a woman to be president of the United States. I don't think it's Kamala Harris, but I'm fine with a woman being president because, number one, and I think your wife would agree with this too, Kurt, they're smarter than we are. And maybe it's time to untangle the mess that a lot of these men have made, and maybe it's time for a woman to be president. Don Lemon doesn't think so. He's the guy over at CNN. Now, he went after her because well, just play the clip first, and then I'll comment after it.
This whole talk about age makes me uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. when a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
He's like, that's not
it's just like prime.
not
if you look
being.
it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree with that. So I think she has.
I'm not going to say anything insulting about Don Lemon, but I will say that the only thing he knows about a woman and her attractiveness is from Google.
Yeah.
That's just
his
telling.
husband is a very strapping, large white man. I Googled it myself. So Don Lemon...
Is he in his prime? Did you Google that?
I did not Google his age. But Don Lemon goes after her as past her prime, and he's getting it from Patricia Heaton, who is as left as they come. Women are going after Don Lemon, and he has to be the most confused man in America right now because he's black, he's gay, he's a liberal, and my God, Kurt, she's a Republican. Yeah. There's a code here. The code is we can say anything we want about them because they're Republicans.
Yeah, that is true. And, I mean, there are certainly some people defending him because it's CNN and it's Don Lemon and she's a Republican, like you said, but, it's kind of crossing over a little bit where people that wouldn't normally, attack him are attacking him.
Whoopi's defending him.
Yeah.
Well, and God knows The View. We can't have a episode of Dale Carter's America without a clip from The View, right?
This is our entire show prep. We just watched The View.
It's time for a new generation of leadership.
You're not a new generation. You're 51. What are you talking about?
Yay!
Where's Joy Behar?
Compared to DC, that's a new generation.
Well, but it's not a new generation. She may be younger than most of those people, but her rhetoric is the same. She's saying
she's a Republican.
Are you sure a woman should be president, Dale?
The correct woman should be president. And I've got some in mind. And Nikki Haley might not be a bad choice to be president. Kamala Harris? Absolutely not. Because, Nikki Haley at least put a sentence together and you could understand it without going into some sort of word salad thing. And math was not my strong suit in either high school or college, Kurt. But the president is 80, right?
Yeah.
51 is a different generation.
Yeah.
A lot different.
And Whoopi Goldberg is 67. She's 16 years older than Nikki Haley, and she's on TV every day pretending like she, is like a culture influencer, and she's trying to be hip and she's trying to stay relevant and everything like that. Like she's totally projecting there, obviously, but it's just funny.
And then you got Bernie Sanders, who's, how old's he?
170.
Yeah.
And we have plenty of time on that.
Former Ambassador Nikki Haley is running for president, as you know, and she said there should be a mandatory mental competency test for politicians older than 75. You're 81. Do you take offense?
Oh, he's 81.
Yeah. What did she mean? I don't understand what you.
Okay, that was an attempt at a joke there, and
he's not funny.
Not good.
That's absurd. There's a level.
Absurd.
Yeah. We are fighting racism, we're fighting sexism, we're fighting homophobia. I think we should also be fighting ageism. Trust people, look at people, and say, this person's competent, this person's not competent. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of 40-year-olds out there who ain't particularly competent.
By the way, I would say this. I look at Bernie Sanders, and I think he is competent. I look at Donald Trump, and I think he is competent. They can put sentences together. They seem like they're in control of what they're doing. And I can also look at Joe Biden. I mean, the site gives it away.
Yeah, but I mean, there is something to be said about, you get to a certain age and you just naturally have mental decline, And I mean, yeah, Bernie Sanders is competent in terms of he can form sentences.
Well, I didn't say I agree with him, but I'm just saying mental clarity, he's there.
As far as we can tell, but who knows? I mean, Joe Biden, who knows what they're doing to him? They're probably pumping him up with, Adderall or whatever else to get him on TV. I'm serious. I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
Not a joke.
I mixed up my Trump and my Biden there. I did my
joke.
Trump hands with the Biden phrase. I'll cut that part out. No, but is that really the standard that we have for politicians? Is that they can complete sentences? Is that really how low the bar is now?
Well, I'm just, mental clarity is what we're talking about here, not policy.
Right. No, I understand. But is that the standard for mental clarity? Is that you can complete form complete
I don't
sentences.
think anybody would be talking about this, Kurt, if our president was able to form a sentence, was able to express himself in a way that made us feel like he's in charge,
right?
Which he's not, and that's why this becomes a question.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not.
Agreed.
And, Nikki Haley, we should be talking about policy. To me, this is a sideshow, and I hope it goes quickly here, and we get into talking about the policies, the things that really matter.
Well, what do you think about Nikki Haley? I mean, do you like her? Do you think she has a chance?
I don't know. I mean, does she check the boxes of conservatism? I think she does. She ran a state, which to me is very important, that you've actually run something before you become president. That ought to be a requirement. Maybe we should pass an amendment to make that a requirement, that you actually have run something before you become president. That would exclude Joe Biden because he never ran anything before he became president.
Yeah.
So why would we think he could run anything?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. She was a governor, and she was a pretty popular governor. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think she
popular
appears...
governor of a very black state.
Yeah.
South Carolina has a lot of black people, and she was very popular in South Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, did you watch her announcement video? It was like 3.5 minutes long. It was a long video, but she appears to be kind of running in that like more centrist kind of broad appeal lane, which I think is probably what she needs to do, because she's not going to outflank Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis if he runs, to the right of them. So I think we're probably looking at another 2016 when there's like 25 people running.
I hope not. And if Ron DeSantis becomes president, maybe she's a great vice president.
Yeah. Well, I would, in your position, I would hope that 25 people don't run either, because that benefits Donald Trump greatly in the primary.
Yeah.
Because they're all going to blend together, and then he's going to be the only one that comes out of the woodwork.
And that would not be a good day for America, in my view. So we'll just see where that goes on this. I have three stories here to me that all tie together, Kurt, and for different reasons. But it's go with me on this. The Michigan State killer, we found out, was given probation for a gun violation in 2019. So to me, that is a law that was not enforced. We talked about this early on in the podcast when I gave my solutions for how we could take care of our gun problem in America in pretty much one generation. Mm-hmm. And that's put people in jail. Mm-hmm. And put them in jail for extended periods of time. If you commit a crime with a gun, you go away for a mandatory minimum sentence. And let's figure out what that's going to be. To put somebody away for a decent amount of time for committing a crime with a gun. And if you kill someone with a gun and it's murder, you go away for life. In a box, you never come out. And again, within one generation, we would have this fixed. But this killer was given probation for a gun violation in 2019, able to plead it down to something to where he walked away with probation. And, when he commits this heinous crime, where does Joe Biden go? It's the gun's fault.
Right. Yeah. Well, because he's not white, so it's a gun control issue. If he was white, it would be white supremacy, but he's not white, so it's gun control.
Yeah. So then you come back to Kansas City, and we had a Tonganoxie teen who killed a Kansas City police officer, his canine partner, and a pedestrian who was homeless, we found out since this. And he was released. I think he was like 18 or 19. 18-year-old kid. He's driving like 90 miles an hour in a 35. Mm-hmm. 90 in a 35. Out of his mind. And he kills a police officer, the canine partner, and a homeless man. And what does Jean Peters Baker do? She lets him walk for a $30,000 bond, of which he had to come up with 10%. Right. So for $3,000, he gets to walk after killing a police officer, the canine officer, and a homeless person. First degree involuntary manslaughter, driving 89 in a 35.
Yeah, and I go back to this case a lot. It was in a different state, but the Kyle Rittenhouse case in Michigan or Wisconsin, whichever it was, his bond was like $2 million. And that was a very clear case of self-defense. Everyone knew right from the beginning that actually watched the videos and saw what happened, that he was acting in self-defense and, should have been acquitted, which he was. But his bail was $2 million. So $2 million versus $30,000. I mean, that's kind of, to me, the staple of comparing these other cases to, because none of them are getting anywhere close to that.
Well, turnstile justice is what we call that, and he is back out on the street, and he's not allowed to drive, allegedly. But who's going to enforce that? Same people who enforce temporary tags, same people who enforce whether you can wear a nose ring in a restaurant, because I found out that that's against the Jackson County Code, yet you can't go into a restaurant in Westport without seeing somebody wearing some bullet through their nose or whatever the hell they've got dripping snot on your food. You know, who's enforcing all this stuff? Nobody's enforcing it. So he's out, and they'll probably slap him on the wrist. And meanwhile, we've lost a hero police officer who basically identified somebody who committed 4 murders, who is serving time for those murders. That was that police officer. So, then you've got this. So, again, these things all tie together. The canine who was killed, California Assembly member Dr. Corey Jackson would applaud that, because he's introduced a bill to eliminate police canines, wait for it, because they're racist, taking away another police tool. This is where we are. This is why we are where we are. And again, it gets back to defunding the police, okay? You want to take away something else from them, and then you raise holy hell when there's crime in these cities, and you say, oh, well, it's the guns' fault. Go after the guns. If I can get my assault rifle ban, everything's going to be great. Mm-hmm. So, you want to play the clip from this guy? Yeah.
Many of these bites can create lifelong injuries. So let's make this clear. Lifelong injuries before you're proven guilty.
The bill is co-sponsored by the state chapter of the NAACP and the ACLU, who say police dogs have a troubling history in America.
Police canines remain a gross misuse of force, victimizing black and brown people disproportionately.
There you go.
Well, there you go. I mean, that just makes all the sense in the world. Why would a police dog bite you?
Guessing you probably did something wrong.
You know, this is like from last week where we talked about the talk, you know, because I never had to have that talk with my kids. I had the talk with my kids. I guess you failed your kids, Mr. President, because when a police officer asks you to do something, you do it, right? If you comply, you don't die.
Right.
If you comply, the police dog is not going to bite you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, to even send out a canine unit in the first place, you know, that doesn't happen for no reason. There has to be a dangerous situation that requires a dog. The reason that cops use dogs is because it's a physical deterrent. You can take somebody down without endangering an officer, you know, so there has to be a situation that warrants that. You know, it's not just for a random traffic stop or jaywalking or something like that. There's usually some kind of violent confrontation, domestic incident, somebody with, a knife, for example, or a gun or something like that. They bring in the canine and they're able to take them down. So then that's another angle of it too, is by eliminating the canine, you're putting officers in more danger.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
There you have it.
Because they're racist anyway, and we should have no police. I think that's something, you know, as we talk about divorcing each other here, and we divorce California, I'm okay. California, you can go.
Yeah.
Set up your own government over there and let us know how that's working out. Don't have any police, okay? Especially in your big cities, no police. Get some social workers, you know, and they can have like a flashlight and a whistle.
Yeah.
And
social workers with cats instead of dogs. We'll give them
let
cats.
us know how that, well, I don't know, cats scratch.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you got to be careful about that. Okay, as we go into our next section here, we're going to talk about Black History Month. And when I told you I wanted to do this, you're like, oh, man, we're going to get in trouble here. And I don't think we will, because I think there's a story here to tell, and it's not the one in the Kansas City Star. Now, I stopped following the Star, okay? So it's not polluting my Facebook feed anymore. I find it humorous, though, that huge building they built right across from T-Mobile Center downtown, it's abandoned because they spent millions of dollars at a time when newspaper was hanging by a thread. Well, that thread has been clipped because, you know, and the only reason I'm aware of what I'm about to tell you is because I go to Quick Trip on the weekends for coffee. They used to have like this big bundle of papers. Now they've got like 5. And they're like at the bottom and nobody ever picks them up. And I look down at the headline and the Star headline, and I don't know what it is beyond the headline because I can't. Right. I won't. But the headline in the Star on Sunday was "Blackness Under Attack."
There it is right there. The tweet. Now we've talked about this before, but I can't click on the article because it's behind a paywall. But
fuck that. We're not paying for this stuff.
Yeah, that's the article. It's got 22 likes on Twitter, so doing really good.
Wow, 22.
Yeah.
And again, you want to divorce an area? You guys can have Kansas City. Give us the suburbs.
Yeah.
Because you are so screwing it up. And I don't even care anymore. I cared for a while. But when you reelected Frank White as the county administrator or the county executive, you get what you deserve. This is what you want. This is the government you want. You want Emmanuel Cleaver to be your congressman. You voted for it. You deserve it. Enjoy it. So blackness is under attack in our country. Of course, I didn't read the story. Did you read anything on it? Not even like a tweet or anything?
No, just the headline tweet there. I mean, it says, quote, "Sometimes it breaks my heart. Sometimes I leave from the Capitol and I feel, how do I go back to my district and give my black constituents some good news?" said Kansas State Senator Oletha Faust Godot.
Okay. Well, is blackness under attack in this country, or are more blacks tired of the empty promises of the Democrat Party? This is an old clip, and I just love how Mike Wallace, who was like the firebrand of 60 Minutes, you didn't want Mike Wallace showing up at your building, Kurt, because it means you did something really bad, and Mike Wallace was about to tear you a new one. Well, he interviewed Morgan Freeman, and this has to be a long time ago because Wallace has been dead for a while, and Morgan looks very young in this clip. And the question was about Black History Month.
Black History Month you find
ridiculous.
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
Yeah. There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman. You want to say, well, I know this white guy named Mike Wallace. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Black.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, it's a timeless clip.
Don't you want to yell amen to that? Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit deeper. I find it interesting that Black History Month is the shortest month of the year.
Yeah.
Even in a leap year, Kurt, it's only 29 days.
You're not the first person to point that out, believe it or not.
Why not August? August is one of the longest months of the year. Mm-hmm. Okay? There's nothing really going on in August. I mean, why not give that Black History Month, one of the longest? Okay, why not June? June's the month that Clarence Thomas was born. Mm-hmm. A black man who is a conservative, who is on the highest court in this land. And I know he's not down with the struggle, according to several black leaders out there. But you know what? You can have different thoughts. You can be a black conservative, and we have examples of it. And the first of those is Clarence Thomas. So I make a motion that we make Black History Month June in honor of Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, or like Morgan Freeman said, just get rid of it.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole point. I'm just making light of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, what they say about Clarence Thomas is that he's an Uncle Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a clip of that from Georgia State Senator.
This is new, by the way.
Yeah. Just like a few days ago.
Place a statue of Clarence Thomas on this grounds. We cannot avoid that conversation, so I'm not going to avoid it either. In the black community, we have an expression, and I don't want to use this label too deeply here because I'm just trying to tell you what we have in the African American community. When we talk about a person of color, that goes back historically to the days of slavery and that person betraying his own community, we have a term in the black community. That term that we use is called Uncle Tom. And Uncle Tom is either a fictional or non-fictional character. I don't really know the origin of Uncle Tom, but it talks about a person who back during the days of slavery sold his soul to the slave masters. Place a statue.
Go. You want to say something about this? I know you do.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's many things I could say about it, but the most obvious one is that he admits he doesn't even know where the phrase Uncle Tom comes from.
Yeah.
He just used it. He had this whole long setup. We have this phrase that we use in the black community to describe, blah, blah, blah. And then he doesn't even know where it comes from. So maybe you should stop saying
Well,
that.
let me give you some more inconvenient truths. Slavery was foisted on this country by Democrats. All right? Reconstruction and everything that happened out of that, the Jim Crow laws, Democrats. Democrats have been keeping the black population under their thumb for centuries. And most recently, they have fostered a sentiment in the black community, Kurt, that you can't exist without us. There is no you without us. And the only way that you've got a path to prosperity is if we tax everybody, we take all the money into Washington, D.C., we filter it out in little programs here, little programs there. That's the only way for you to rise. And if you don't go along with that, you're an Uncle Tom.
Pretty much. That sums it up, I think.
I mean, okay, so I'm on to another Black History Month. November is a candidate. Why November? Because that's the month that Condoleezza Rice was born. Condoleezza Rice, you talk about somebody who would be a great president. She would not lower herself to be president. She'd like to be commissioner of the NFL. She was the first African-American female to be Secretary of State. She was a national security advisor. She was basically one of the smartest people in George W. Bush's cabinet. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I was very young then, so.
Yeah. Trust me on this. Condoleezza Rice is an amazing person, an amazing American. But you know what? She's an Aunt Tom or Aunt Tomalina. Is that a name we can come up with?
Yeah.
Because she's not down with the struggle. She's not down with the struggle. She brought herself up. She educated herself, and she became one of the smartest people in this country. And in my view, you talk about a woman who could run this country and do it well and effectively. It's Condoleezza Rice, and she's a black woman. So I guess I'm a racist, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. October. October would be a great month for Black History Month because Colin Powell was born in October. Now, not a rock-ribbed conservative, but he was the first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was the first black Secretary of State, and a smart guy.
Yeah.
And a truly great American, but not the kind of guy that says, and he probably could have won had he run for president. I think his wife talked him out of it because he didn't want to be the first. He didn't want to go out there and put himself out there to that extent. But, I think he would have been a great president. Would he have been as conservative as you like? Probably not. But certainly not as liberal as most of the black establishment that tells you on the black community that you can't exist without us.
Mm-hmm. Without the state. Yeah.
Without the state. Some more names. I don't know when they were born, but Tim Scott, senator from South Carolina, Byron Donalds, the congressman from Florida, who I think acquitted himself well in the whole mess that went on with McCarthy being speaker. I mean, more black people every day, Kurt, are waking up and saying, I don't need this. This isn't working. And we don't all have to speak with the same voice.
Yeah, I see some of that too. I think in a lot of ways, the black community is sort of naturally conservative. They're tend to be, of course, speaking in generalizations here, but tend to be very religious, tend to oppose a lot of the LGBT type stuff. They tend to have more traditional values in that sense. And so I think if the Republican Party can speak to those communities effectively, it hasn't really been tried. There's very few people. In Kansas City, we had Ryan Dirks that tried to do it, and he got more votes than anybody against Cleaver. He still lost, but he got more votes than anybody had before. So maybe that's starting, the ball rolling down the hill. We need more people like that to really present an alternative to this Democrat messaging that has controlled the black population for so long, I think.
Well, the thing that I liked best about the clip we played from Morgan Freeman is I don't want you to look at Morgan saying this. I don't want you to look at Morgan Freeman and say there's a black guy named Morgan Freeman. I want you to see Morgan Freeman. Mm-hmm. And that's where we want to be. And that's what Martin Luther King was talking about, in 1963, when he talked about content of character versus color of skin. And the only reason that we're still here, Kurt, is because the people on the left keep stirring the pot.
Yeah.
They won't let the healing take place because they can't let the healing take place. Because if healing happens, all of a sudden their revenue base dries up.
And their votes dry up. I mean, the grievance
I think
politics,
the two are linked.
Yeah, the grievance politics of, racism, sexism, ageism now, and all of this other stuff is deliberate. I mean, obviously it's deliberate because without the grievance of thinking that everyone's out to get them, they don't have the guaranteed vote of, a large block of a certain population.
Yeah. By the way, Kreisbergs, who I know you've allowed to still be part of our podcast Facebook page, I put up the thing about Don Lemon being the most confused man in America right now because he said all this stuff about Nikki Haley and he's being attacked from the left. He's got to be confused because he's black, he's gay, and he's a liberal. And Kreisbergs goes, well, I've got another nomination to make, and he puts up a picture of Tucker Carlson, which completely misses the whole point of why I put that up there.
Yeah, he does have a very good confused face. That's become a meme, like the Tucker Carlson confused face. But it's just a meme. It's not like,
I get that. I think he was trying to equate Tucker Carlson to Don Lemon. And Don Lemon is being attacked from his own side.
Right.
Carlson's not really being attacked from the right.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe on certain specific issues, but broadly speaking.
Don Lemon really stepped in it. And by the way, the latest on him, CNN is putting him into training so that he can understand
He's
what
got
he
to
did
go
wrong.
to re-education.
Re-education, a little bit of training. And I don't even know why they put him on the air. He's got like 3 viewers.
I'm sure that'll fix him. He'll be better.
Yeah, he'll be better. Okay, Life in Joey B's America is our final little segment here. Clean bill of health for Joe.
Nice.
Really? I mean,
he must have some pretty questionable doctors.
Did he doctor shop to get that? I don't know. I don't even care anymore. He's got 699 more days in his first term to complete. And as I told you last week, if anybody raises the idea, unless it's proven he did something illegal, of impeaching him for something silly like they did with Trump twice, I will be one of the voices that says, oh no, America, you voted for this. 699 more days in this first term, so you better come to work every day with your lunch bucket and be ready to grow, or to go. I'm sorry, I read ahead here. Inflation continues to grow, but it's growing more slowly, which Karine Jean-Pierre says is good for America and proof that the Biden plan is working.
Numbers came out today that show a monthly decline in real wages as well as an annual decline in real wages. Administration officials have said growing real wages is an important marker for the economy.
Looking through her notes.
Setback in today's.
Got to read it.
So, a couple of things. I do want to say that what we have said many times is that we believe that the president's economic plan is indeed working, and it's giving people a little breathing room. You heard me say this at the top.
Where's the breathing room?
How we have seen, the plan actually working. We're seeing inflation moderate just a bit as we've seen the last couple of months, and that is important.
Okay, the best explanation I heard of inflation, because can she point to anything that has gone down in price under
maybe
this president?
gas. I mean, well, not since he started, but the last
since he
couple
started,
months.
I'm talking about. Has anything gone down to below where it was when he started? Absolutely not. So let's talk about inflation. She says it's moderating. All right, let's say that what cost you $100 last year because of the inflation spike that happened now costs you $200. Okay. Inflation is slowing down, but that doesn't mean it's going down.
Right.
So what costs you $200 may now cost you $250.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying that's a cut.
Right.
And it's not a cut. It just continues to go up. Maybe it's going up a little more slowly, but it's not going down.
Yeah, it's the manipulation of language. They do the same thing with entitlement spending. We talked about that a little bit last week. And just her whole vibe, I mean, is so
condescending.
Yeah, we're just going to say the same word. But he's asking a very legitimate question. He's like, wages are not going up. Inflation is going up. People have less money to spend. And she's just like looking through her notes. She's got to find the page, that has the talking points. She's like batting her eyelashes like, oh, I can't be bothered. Like this freaking guy asking me this question. It's like, give me a break.
Okay, so here's what life is like in Joey B's America. Eggs, way too expensive. Story in the Wall Street Journal. Don't eat breakfast. There you go.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
This picture, too, if you're watching on YouTube, this is like so... If there's one picture that could just be like 2022 or 2023 in a nutshell, it's like eggs... It's some old lady wearing a face mask inside. You know, it's got all the things in it.
Yeah.
Just a sign of our times, I guess.
I'm telling you, if Ron DeSantis listens to our podcast, and I hope that he does, I'm going to give him a way that he can win in 2024. I think in America you should be able to eat breakfast.
Yeah.
All right? Don't eat breakfast. That's from the Wall Street Journal. Gas prices are too high? Yeah. Drive less.
Yeah.
See, that makes sense.
Get an EV.
Buy an EV.
Yeah.
$80,000, not a problem. You can go buy that. I don't know where you'd charge it because we don't have any charging stations. And again, when you plug it in, you plug it into a fossil fuel-based grid that's already overtaxed. Your utility bills are too high. Well, don't call Austin Watterson and get your house set up with solar so that you can afford everything. Just turn down the thermostat in the winter and up in the summer.
Yep.
Wear more clothes in the winter. Go streaking in the summer. Yeah, we like nudity. Well, not really. We like the idea of nudity, right?
Yeah, in theory, usually it's better than it is in practice.
By the way, total non sequitur. When you were in Mexico, did you go to like one of those topless beaches?
No, they don't have any in Cancun, I don't think. Anyways, I didn't really look too hard, but I don't think they have any.
I just wanted to test my theory that the people who will take it off aren't the people you want to see. And maybe you would have. Okay, so streak in the summer, dress warmer in the winter, turn down that thermostat in winter, crank it up in the summer, buy an EV, and don't eat breakfast. That's life in Joey B's America.
Yep. It's going great.
Y'all voted for it. 80 million people, most votes in the history of the country. So suck it again for 699 more days. We leave you with this. Jim Dingman has been with us on the podcast for a while now. Jim runs and owns the Funhouse Pizzas in both Blue Springs and Lee's Summit. Great place to have pizza. Go see our buddy Jim Dingman. You got a birthday party coming up. Funhouse Pizza's a great place to have it. They'll take incredible care of you at Lee's Summit on 50 Highway and also in Blue Springs on 7 Highway. You just pull your pants up before you go in because it drives Jim crazy if you got your pants hanging around your ankles. Well, you wouldn't. Not around your ankles, your hips.
Yeah.
You don't let your pants dangle down, do you?
Yeah,
Kurt?
that'd be pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, if you're walking into a place and somebody wants to put a quarter in your butt crack to see if it plays a song, pull your pants up, okay? Pull your pants up. Go to Funhouse Pizza, have some beer, have some soft drinks, enjoy the fun there, the environment, all the contests that Jim Dingman has. He's a great American, and he always sends me stuff like this, Kurt, and I thought this would be a great way to end this podcast because you got people out there who are like, they just want whatever they can get, right? And we just came out of President's Day, which in the Steel City building was not an official holiday. It was what was it, Kurt?
Work from home day?
Yeah, did you work much yesterday?
No comment.
In honesty, the big boss won't hear it. I don't think anybody did. But this video clip, it's obviously old because it's in black and white, but this guy shows you how you can get ahead because so few people are doing it.
And I found out that the same things can happen to two different people. One gets rich and one stays poor. Why is that? It's because it's not what happens, it's what you do. Two men wake up one morning, there's a rainstorm on. One of them looks out his window, sees the rainstorm, and he says, "Wow, what a storm. With weather like this, they can't expect you to go out and make sales." He stays home. Same morning, the other guy looks out his window, sees the same storm, says, "Wow, what a storm." But he says, "You know what, with weather like this, what a great day to go out and make sales. Most everybody will probably be home, especially the salesman." See, that's the difference in how your life works out. It's not what happens, it's what you do. And
it's
I found
not
out that
what
the same-
happens, it's what you do. And finally, we just want to say thank you again to Bob Watson, State Farm agent, 7th and Main in Blue Springs, 816-229-7878, auto, home, life, commercial insurance. He's been serving folks in the Blue Springs area, also in Kansas and Missouri. He's licensed to both for 5 decades. He's a guy who makes it happen. He's not somebody who waits for things to happen to him. He goes out there and he makes it happen. And if you need a rate quote on your auto, your home, your life, your commercial business, whatever you've got going, if you're running a business out of your house, if you got a side hustle, he's got insurance that will cover you if you ever get sued. Think about that. There's always people out there waiting to sue you. You can sue anybody in this country for anything. And Bob Watson can show you the areas in your life where you might be vulnerable. So check him out. He's at 7th and Main in Blue Springs, 816-229-7878. And until next week, my friends, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.